The 61st Psalm and the first 4 verses reads as follows. Hear my cry, O God, listen to my prayer. From the ends of the earth I call to you. I call as my heart grows faint. Lead me to the rock that is higher than I. For you have been my refuge, a strong tower against the foe. I long to dwell in your tent forever and take refuge in the shelter of your wings. Certainly a beautiful passage. And as we read that, we think everywhere you look, people are searching desperately for a way to deal with the problems of life. And it seems sometimes that they can't find practical answers, and perhaps we don't give practical answers. If someone is physically starving to death, it doesn't do any good to explain the nation's economy. It doesn't do any good to talk about the price of gas. That person needs nourishment, and they need it right then. When someone is starving to death spiritually, they need help right then. The most difficult thing I ever had to do in 28 years of military service was when I was stationed at Fort McPherson, Georgia, and was assigned the additional duty of casualty notification officer. During that 3-month period of duty, which was during Operation Enduring Freedom, we had a casualty. I received a phone call, was ordered to report to a certain office dressed in Class A uniform. I was given a name and address and instructions according to the training which went along with that assignment. The post chaplain was with me. However, he was not allowed to speak a word until I had verified identities and informed the family of what had happened. We arrived at that house, knocked on the door. It was very early in the morning, because we had to notify the family before they heard anything from anyone else. A little lady opened the door. I said, "Ma'am, are you Miss So-and-so?" She said, "Yes, I am." I said, "Is Staff Sergeant so-and-so your son?" She said, "Yes, he is." I said, "The Secretary of the Army is saddened to report that your son was killed." And I went on to give the date and the time and how the death occurred. She fell back completely overwhelmed with sorrow. And I wanted to help her so badly. We were not allowed to touch anyone. But I wanted to tell her, you know, there's a beautiful place called heaven where joys await for those who are God's children. That's not what she needed. What she needed right then, that moment, was help to get through that hour. It was so heartbreaking. But here's what I learned from that experience, and I hope and pray that we learn from the difficulties of life. God gives us what we need right now. God gives us what we need to get through this moment. David cried out to God to place him on a rock that was higher than himself. David was in the whirlwinds of life. There were problems all around. They were overwhelming his soul. There was seemingly no help anywhere, so he cries out to God. And the picture here is of a rock that's so high that he can't climb it alone. Out of a heart of despair, David cries out to God, "Help me attain that rock." There would be a solid foundation. There he would be out of turmoil. There God would take care of him. You see, no one is so good that they do not have to suffer the difficulties of life. Things that come along and try our very souls. Look at the 143rd Psalm. In verse 4, David said, "So my spirit grows faint within me. My heart within me is dismayed." Have you ever felt that way? I think most of us have, haven't we? David didn't feel that way because of some microaggression. That's a new word I learned. A little snide remark, a little look. Could be a micro. No, it wasn't because his feelings were hurt by someone making a snide remark. The devil was trying to get him. And the devil used every device possible to bring down this man after God's own heart. David was oppressed on every hand. So how did God pull him from the depths of despair? Number one, by remembering how it used to be. Look at verse 5. I remember the days of long ago. I meditate on all your works and consider your hands, what your hands have done. There's a danger of living in the past, isn't there? We've seen those who cannot enjoy life now because they live in the past. And we like to romanticize about the past. I remember my grandparents' outhouse. No, thank you. No, thank you. But there are times we need to look back. There are times we need to remember. David said, I remember. And although things are difficult now, I remember it hasn't always been this way. And when I felt this way before, God has strengthened my faith. That's what David needed right then. He said back in the 61st Psalm in verse 3, you have been my refuge. That's past tense, isn't it? You have delivered me before, and I'm confident you can do it again. In Joshua chapter 4, the children of Israel were about to cross the Jordan. The river was at flood stage. The priests went into the waters parted. They crossed. A man from each tribe was to get a stone out of the river and put it in the middle of the camp. When the children asked, what do these stones mean? They were told, God will deliver His people. When the men went out to battle, they were to look at those stones and know that God was going to take care of His cause. So God was saying, remember what I did for you. Look at these stones and be reminded of what I have done for you. As Christians, we ought to be marking life's way with such stones, so that we can look back and remember how God has taken care of us and know that He will continue to do so. David said, I remember. Secondly, he said, I spread out my hands to you. I thirst for you like a parched land. How did God help David out of the depths of despair? By his continual reaching for God. We must continually reach out to God, because if we give up that pursuit of righteousness, we'll fall. We must seek Him while He may be found. When life improved for David, he didn't quit reaching out to God. He didn't quit seeking to please God, but he was faced by enemies on every hand. He continued to reach out for God. He was actually run out of his own country at one time. He continued to reach out for God. His own son rebelled against him. He continued to reach out for God. He sinned. And when Nathan came and said, thou art the man, he said, God, forgive me. And he continued to reach out for God. Verse 8, let the morning bring me word of your unfailing love, for I have put my trust in you. Show me the way I should go, for to you I entrust my life. Rescue me from my enemies, Lord, for I hide myself in you. Teach me to do your will, for you are my God. May your good spirit lead me on level ground. David said, I'm going to keep on. I'm going to keep on obeying God. Although I'm in difficult circumstances now, Lord, guide me. Although things are hard now, Lord, teach me. You are my God. And whatever your will may be, that is what I will do. No matter how difficult life may be, if we continue to obey God, if we continue to follow His word, if we continue to reach out to Him and trust Him, He will deliver us and lead us to that higher rock. If you're subject to the Lord's invitation, please come while we stand. While we